Let me just start off by saying, y'all, I'm nervous because I'm telling y'all my business. But I'm telling my business because I really feel like this is going to help somebody. It may help you. It may help somebody you know. Either way it goes, this happened to me for a reason. I'm more than sure the reason is to help somebody else. We blessed, by the way. Hey, how y'all doing? I'm Dara Madrice, also known as Dara, formerly known as Insecurely Natural. I want to make a disclaimer before I get into this video, and I really want to say that I'm creating this video to help other people. I'm not creating this video to bash anybody or talk down on anybody, but at the end of the day, this is my story and I'm telling it in hopes that it helps somebody else, because domestic violence is no joke and people die every day due to domestic violence. To be honest with you, I didn't know that I was in a domestic violent. I always want to say domestically violent. Is domestically violent a word? I'm gonna say it, and if it ain't, I'm sorry y'all, but it rolls off the tongue so much better, so I'm gonna just say that. I didn't know that I was in a domestically violent relationship when I was in it, and it wasn't really until I got to my wit's end and I started fearing for my life that I decided to really look more into what this whole situation was. So upon further research, it turned out that I was in a violent relationship, domestic violence, and I was stuck in something that's called a trauma bond. So in this video, I'm going to give you guys a little background on me and my past as it relates to this story, and take you on a ride with me through my crazy domestically violent relationship. And along the way, I will cover each step in the trauma bond. There are 7 steps in a trauma bond, and along with that, I'm gonna give you guys some examples, real life examples that happened to me that correlates with each step, because I went through every step of this trauma bond over and over and over and over again. Okay, I ultimately was stuck in this trauma bond for 6 years. It took me 6 years to get out. This story, even when I was writing my notes, because I had to remember a lot of things, I ain't gonna say bad at it, but one of my trauma responses is to forget things, like the bad things that happened to me. So I really had to dive deep when I wrote my outline for this video, because even going back through everything that happened it really took a toll on me. It's a lot of heavy energies that I had to relive in writing this outline. So if you guys see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes, because this happened back in 2011. Was it 2011? 2010. This happened back in 2010. So I had to write down some notes so that I can remember what to say. Hopefully I don't get all emotional, because your girl made it through, and just thinking about everything that I went through, it definitely is challenging. I don't like saying story time because it's a story, but at the same time, it's way more than that. So yeah, let me stop talking and let's get into it. So growing up, I wasn't an only child, but me and my brother is 10 years apart. So I really grew up alone. It was just me and him. My mom only had the 2 of us. And due to my upbringing, I felt alone a lot of times, because my mother, she has an illness where she couldn't be the mother that I needed. And it's not her fault, because she had an illness. She has an illness. My father wasn't around, and my grandfather basically was the person that raised me. So from birth, he raised me from birth. By the time he had me, he was older, like he was in his 60s, I want to say. And a lot of times I was left to fend for myself for the most part. Like, I didn't have, what's the word I'm looking for? Because I'm not trying to get too deep, y'all, because I'll be over crying. I had to teach myself a lot of basic things as a woman, as a girl growing up, a lot of daily problems I had to teach myself. And I really was different from a lot of other kids. Just my whole home situation was not ordinary. So I lacked having the love that I needed. I didn't have that adult figure to teach me any of those things. And I didn't have anyone around. I didn't have self-love. And I didn't have that attention that I wanted and needed as a child. And I also didn't have the affection that I needed and wanted as a child. So that kind of left an empty space inside of me all throughout my life growing up. So because I didn't know how to love myself and I didn't know how to attract the right attention, I thought that all attention was good. I embraced all attention and I embraced all affection. So I just, no matter where it came from or who it came from, as long as I was getting it, then I was satisfied for the moment. Whew, that was a lot. So what is a trauma bond? According to wellandgood.com, a trauma bonding relationship is one with repeated physical or emotional trauma and intermittent, y'all, I know how to read, okay? Intermittent positive reinforcement. I knew I would get it down eventually, y'all. Given my background and how I grew up, I was a prime candidate to be caught in a trauma bond, okay? It just was bound to happen, okay? I'm gonna just say that. We're gonna get into stage 1, and that is love bombing. So when we first met, he found me on MySpace. This is when MySpace was popping. I'm telling my age, y'all. I'm 35. I ain't scared to say it. I have a lot of younger viewers that watch my content. So y'all can look at me like big sis, okay? Because I'm going to give y'all the game off top because your girl's hard-headed. I done been through a lot of things, okay? I ain't going to say we first started talking because I wasn't really giving him the time of day. But he was writing me on MySpace all the time. He was writing me poems and just telling me little sweet things all the time. And I wasn't really responding to him. On MySpace especially, I wasn't responding. I wasn't really giving him no play like that because he wasn't really my type, to be honest. So I wasn't really responding, but he was still sending me poems and everything all the time. Time went by, he was still writing me on and off. It wasn't like heavy like that, but it was more than usual, you know what I'm saying, to not be getting a response. So eventually Facebook started getting popping and he found me on Facebook. I don't know if he actively went looking for me on Facebook, but he found me on Facebook and the same things was going on. He was still writing me and all of that, and I wasn't really giving him the time of day. Like, you know how when you be bored and somebody really don't, I ain't gonna say want to talk to, but at the same time I kind of didn't want to talk to him at the time. You know how you just bored, so to pass the time you'll talk back and forth. That's the type of relationship we had at first on Facebook. Our relationship started to grow because we were talking, not in person. It was mainly phone conversations until one day I was bored kicking it with my cousin. You know how it be when you kicking it with your homegirl and you talking to a dude and you like, you know, my cousin's her or my friend is her. You got a friend for my friend type of situation. And he did, and so we met up and we got to talk a little bit, and I was intrigued, I ain't gonna lie. I was intrigued, so we got closer after that. And eventually we started hanging out, maybe once or twice. It was maybe once or twice we hung out before, you know, it got serious. After the third time we met up is when we had sex, and after that, our relationship went at a very, very accelerated rate. After me and him, you know, did the do, I basically moved in with him, okay? We wasn't living on our own. We were living in his parents' house because we was both broke. Granted, we was still kind of young. We was in our early 20s, so, but still, I moved in with him and his mom and basically his family. We was together every single day, and eventually it just turned into me bringing clothes over and never leaving. And this is all in a week or two's time. By me being around him all the time, that really gave him a way to basically get in my head. Now I'm not saying that he was like, yes, now I got her, but at the same time, when I started spending more time with him, I started spending less time with my friends and family. And he would tell me stuff like, nobody's gonna love you like I love you, and I'm the only one that's gonna care about you. And what validated this for me was my past, because growing up, I got love and attention from men, but it was in a sexual way. Once I gave them sex, that gave me my little bit of attention and affection that I was craving for. But virtually, that's all I got, because that's all they wanted was sex. So by him telling me I love you and ain't nobody gonna love you like I love you, and by me not having a close-knit family, that really validated things for me and made me believe that really he was the only person that was gonna be there for me, the only person that would be able to take care of me, because I never really had that. So that brings us to stage 3. During this stage is where the emotional and verbal abuse began. You know how when you first get in a relationship and y'all so eager, like, here's my password to my phone, where's my password to my phone? You giving passwords away. Even though I had his password, I was never the type to want to be like, let me look through his phone and see what he's doing, or let me see who he's talking to. That was never the type of person that I was. Can't say the same for him, because it seemed like every day he was looking through my phone. It ain't no scene to it. Every day, literally, he was looking through my phone. He would look through my phone while I was asleep, or if I'm downstairs doing something, or if I'm in another room, then he would look through my phone. There was this guy that I had known from a couple months ago, and our conversation was nothing but a, hey, how you been? Oh, that's good. Like one of those conversations. It was never like a sexual conversation. It wasn't leading to a sexual conversation. It really was a, hey, how you doing? How you been? And then the conversation was over. It wasn't even a continuance of the conversation. But he saw this message. It was a Facebook message. He saw this message and really like flew off the handles. He was very upset, and that's when the name calling began. I started becoming all type of hoes, and I really want to go into the words, but I can't really do that here on YouTube. But any cuss word that you can think of a person who is promiscuous, that's what I was, in a explicit term. Again, so he would go in my phone and change my passcodes. He changed my email. I still don't have access to that email, y'all. My very first email address, he changed that. He changed my Facebook password. Like, I couldn't even get into my own accounts. Like, it was crazy. Like, it really was crazy. And then eventually it went from me getting cussed out verbally and getting yelled at to him punching holes in walls and breaking phones. So I did find a picture of one of the walls, because you know, Google Photos be saving everything, and I have a lot of traumatizing photos in there, but I really didn't want to post too many. But I just wanted to post that picture to show an example of how many holes was in this wall. And that time in particular, he went off the handle. That was one of the times I thought I was gonna lose my life, but I thought I was gonna lose my life, let me say. I think I went through about 10 phones, no joke. Like, real talk, 10 phones during this stage where it said that small things turn into bigger things. We're arguing over why the dishes ain't clean. Why the dishes ain't clean, I would say, is a level 2, 3 of anger. But by the time we get to the end of the argument, because we ain't talking about the room being clean no more, by the end of the argument, we're talking about who I was talking to on the phone, or who I've been DMing, or who I'm possibly cheating with. He's at a 10. And at that point, I'm getting cussed out again. I'm getting called all type of dumb idiots. Like, Level 2 and 3, I'm getting yelled at, getting cussed out, but slowly but surely it's getting up to where he's want to punch a hole in the wall or throw and break a phone. That's how it was. The definition, when it said you start to think something is wrong with you, he's very intelligent, he's very smart, and at the time that he met me, I didn't know myself. I'm gonna say that because I'm much more quick on the draw now. But back then I would stumble over my words when we're arguing, and he would call me dumb and stupid, and because he was so smart and so quick to say something, I really in my mind felt like I was dumb and slow, and I just really started to believe that. Also during this stage, I was still arguing back. Like, I was still trying to prove my point. I was still saying something. I was still defending myself. But every time that I would start to defend myself is when he would get even more upset and even more angry. During this time, I gave him a lot of excuses because by the time we got to this stage, we had grown closer and we had talked about our past and how we grew up. And due to his past, I used to feel so much empathy for that because I went through a rough time myself, and I felt so sorry for him. And I really thought that I could fix him. I know it sounds crazy, but I thought that I could fix him, or that the situation would get better and he would change. Then I got pregnant. I honestly thought that this would fix and change everything. I thought when I got pregnant with my firstborn, my son, I just knew that we were going to be good. Like, I knew all this stuff was going to end. And it's so crazy that I thought that, because the day that I told him that I thought I was pregnant, we had gotten into it for something. I can't remember what we was into it for. Probably me supposedly being a hoe. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But we didn't have a car, and we were walking to Kroger's. I remember we were walking to the grocery store to get a pregnancy test. And that day he told me, you better hope you pregnant, because if you ain't pregnant, you out of here. Basically, that's what he was telling me. I remember that day like it was yesterday. I better hope I was pregnant. I knew I was pregnant because my period was late, and you know me, I'm Google queen, so I done Googled all the symptoms and stuff, so I knew I was pregnant. I was gonna get kicked out that day had I not been pregnant. But once we both seen the positive result, I think I took like 2 pregnancy tests that day. We was both happy, like we was both good. Like, I really thought we were on to something. Like, we about to start a family. We just gonna be so happy. That's what I thought. Okay, stage 4, gaslighting. So let's get into the first time that this relationship got physically violent. I was pregnant and we were coming from the library. I wanted to get some pregnancy books. When you first find out you're pregnant, especially during your first pregnancy, you're so excited and you want to learn everything you can about your pregnancy. Like, week by week, what's going to happen this week? What's going to happen this week? How the baby looking this week? Like, that's where I was at. We were leaving the library. We was walking to the bus stop. And it happens to be a gentleman who was, I don't even know if he was walking or if he was standing. Somehow we passed him. We passed him by. And we get to the bus stop and we're sitting at the bus stop. And he's just looking at me. He's just looking at me. And it's so crazy because I always knew something was about to go down when he looked at me this certain way. And to this day, I ain't gonna say to this day because I haven't really seen him like that, but I always knew by this facial expression, it used to scare the crap out of me, like, because he looked so mean and so angry. And that's how he was looking at me at the bus stop. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out, like, what's going on? And he was like, you liked that, didn't you? Or you liked him, didn't you? Or something like that. And I was so confused. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like what? That dude, you like that. That's your type right there. I seen you looking. Y'all, I literally was in my own zone trying to look at my books and stuff. Like, we walk into the bus stop, I didn't even look at this man. I didn't even see what the man looked like. I just really honestly remember passing somebody by, but I don't remember like really sitting there and checking somebody out. By the time I looked around to see exactly who he was talking about, I got a smack to the face, right here to the cheek. It wasn't no little baby slap neither. He slapped the shit out of me, y'all. He really slapped the crap out of me. I didn't know how to take it because that had never happened to me before. Like, no man has ever put their hands on me. It was a lot to process in a short amount of time because I feel like when he did it, he kind of shocked himself. Because immediately, like by the time we got on the bus, he was apologizing and saying he was sorry. And this is where the gaslighting comes in, because he actually blamed me for him slapping me. Like, it was my fault that I got slapped because I made him so angry by looking at this man, and I didn't even look at this man. And it was gaslighting because I really second guessed myself. Like, was I looking at him? Did I see who this man was? Knowing good day go well, I was not even looking at that man. But he really had me convincing myself that maybe I did look at this man. Although I knew that he was wrong for putting his hands on me, at the same time, I gave him a pass. It wasn't like immediately I gave him a pass, but he started the, I love you and I'm so sorry and I won't do it again. That was crazy. That was the very first time that he put his hands on me. That was the first time he put his hands on me. So at this point, we're moving really, really fast. Okay, all of that, everything that I've explained to y'all and told y'all has happened in a span of about a year. So on to stage 5. This is what I call the sunken place. By the time you at stage 5, you are in the sunken place. It's basically doing everything to please that person. They are in control of you now. It was an article I read that said basically they in the driver's seat and you in the back along for the ride. So by this point, I was on the edge. I was so hyper aware and I was basically so attentive to him. I was watching his every movement, his every facial expression. I was looking for that scary, mean, angry face that I would see before blood would happen. I was tiptoeing around him so that I wouldn't step on his toes, because one wrong move could start something. And it basically was giving very much Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde. Is that what it's called? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was giving that, because one minute he was good and then the next minute he was flying off the handles. If just one thing wasn't right, oh, we're arguing for the rest of the day. I would also have to watch every single thing that I did. So I had to watch the way that I talked. I couldn't talk in a way that gave attitude, even if I wasn't trying to give attitude, because by that point I was in a sunken place. So I wasn't giving attitude because I was scared. So I just basically had to watch the way I talk regular. Even if I'm saying, what do you want to eat? I can't say it with love. What you want to, like, I couldn't say it any type of other way, or it was going to be an argument. I especially had to watch the way that I looked at my phone, the way that I typed a message. Because if I'm looking at my phone like this, or even with any type of smile on my face, if I'm looking at my phone with any type of smirk, smile, any type of facial movement, then I would get that look of death. Okay, I would get that, like, what is she over there doing? Who's she over there typing? Who's she over there talking to? What message she over there reading? I also had to watch the way that I looked at another person. Y'all remember what happened at the bus stop, okay? So we could be at the mall, we could be anywhere where the opposite sex was that he felt like was my type. I couldn't look at them. I couldn't really look at him. It was like anything that I did, any way that I look, I'm either obviously trying to avoid looking at this person, which was suspicious, or if I'm looking at that person, it was suspicious. It was one of those I need to keep my head down type of situations. Like, he never said keep your head down, but like, that's basically what I needed to do. Either way it goes, any wrong thing that I did, it was gonna start something. So at this point, I'm giving it up. Also, I wouldn't argue back anymore. By this time, I just wanted peace and I didn't want to argue, and I knew that anything that I would say would cause it to go to 10, or anything that I did would cause it to 10. So I wasn't even arguing back anymore. He would argue literally with himself for an hour to 2 hours with me not even saying anything. And it was crazy because whether I said something or didn't say something, like, it was going to be an argument. But I just felt like me agreeing to what he said or just not biting back would make the situation better. So basically, he was in control. He was in control of everything. And I was just a passenger just looking out the window like, oh, look at the trees. Da-da-da-da. Meanwhile, he's over here arguing about who I've been talking to, who I talked to back in 2010. During this stage in the sunken place, this is when my friends and family started noticing that I wasn't the same person anymore. I had changed and I really was just a shell of my former self. I wasn't the happy, fun Dara anymore. I was the always nervous, scared, checking my phone. He was blowing me up whenever I wasn't with him. Blowing me up, texting me, asking me what I'm doing, where I'm at. I really was scared to do anything. I was scared to even hang out with friends, be it even for a little short amount of time. And it's so crazy because while I'm scared to hang out with friends because just out of fear of him, he was going out with his friends all the time and staying out all hours of the night. Sometimes he wouldn't even come home. And if that would have been me, y'all, I probably wouldn't even be here telling y'all this story, like, real talk. So now we're on to stage 6. So by stage 6, we're in the sunken place. We've lost all confidence in ourselves, what little we had for some of us, because I didn't really have none to begin with. We just give up. During this stage is usually when I start to wake up a little bit. I have a very, very strong soul, and it's usually around this stage when I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired that I will make plans to leave. I would look at my babies, I would look at my children, and I would want better for them. And I would also want better for myself because I knew deep down in my soul that I was not supposed to be in that relationship. So this is the stages, because like I said, I went through this several times where I would get restraining orders. I would make safety plans for me to leave. I would talk about leaving. I would get friends and family involved. And ultimately, I would come back because we went on for 6 years. So I would go back even after restraining order, safety plans, getting family and friends involved. I say evolved. And sometimes I would leave. When I left, I would leave for days and weeks and sometimes months. But I end up coming back because we get into the last and final stage, which is stage 7, addiction. This addiction is a real thing. You're addicted to this bond that y'all have formed over these stages, be it years, months, days even, because it really happens so fast. You get caught in this bond very, very quickly. Every single time that I would leave, because I was so used to being around him all the time, and I also didn't have any self-confidence. My self-confidence was gone. I had no self-esteem. And by this point, I'm used to him controlling everything. I don't know. It ain't that I didn't know, but I didn't think that I could do everything on my own because he was always in control. And so in the midst of me being lonely and being alone, because I've always been around him, especially when I had kids, it's hard raising kids on your own, first and foremost. And being used to having him there and just the thoughts start to creep in. Those thoughts of nobody would ever love me like him. And not to mention, during this time also, he's trying to get in contact with me. So he's calling me, he's texting me, he's finding any way that he can to get in contact with me, and he's promising me that he's gonna change and he's gonna do better and he's gonna go to therapy, and he's telling me how much he loves me. And in the meantime, he's also sending me flowers and writing those poems that he did when we first met. He's turning into the person that I've always wanted him to be. I'm seeing us when we were happy, and then I'm thinking about all the good times that we had, even though realistically it was way more bad times than it was good times. But I'm not looking at the bad times, I'm only looking at the good times because I'm lonely and I have no self-confidence, no self-love, no self-worth. All that love and attention and affection that I had always craved, I'm craving that from him because he was giving me that, even though along with that came a lot of mental and physical and emotional abuse. And then I started thinking about his past and why he was how he was, giving him excuses, and how this time is gonna be different because he's telling me it's gonna be different because he's gonna go to therapy. And he did even go to therapy, but it didn't last long. It even got to the point where he was even threatening his own life. And I didn't want that. You know, I didn't want anything like that to happen. And that's emotional abuse, by the way, y'all. Just all those factors made me go back every time. Every single time throughout those whole 6 years. By me going back, guess what? We went right back into the trauma bond all over again. He love bombed me back. So now, oh, it's kissy, 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 huggy, 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 flowers, poems, hugs, love, attention, affection. And then we slowly go back into the trust and dependency, reinforcing, I'm the only one that's gonna love you like this. Nobody's gonna love you like I love you. And then we go back into slowly being criticized, cussed out. It goes from verbal to emotional, or vice versa. It doesn't matter which order it goes in. Sometimes you don't even get the slowly but surely into the physical. Sometimes it goes right straight back to physical. But either way it goes, we're right back into this trauma bond. And it's basically we just going back and forth in a loop over and over and over and over again. So what made me finally end this cycle, you may ask? If I kept going back and back and back, what caused me to finally for real be done after all this time? The main thing that caused me to finally end it for good was when I started to fear for my life. That really woke me up. When he started to threaten to kill me, and when the hands around the throat started coming, and the you ain't leaving and I ain't leaving type of situation, and factored in with he done already threatened to take his life a few times, you know what I'm saying, to get me back. All of those things factored in, like, well, if he's willing to do this to himself, he definitely ain't gonna care about me, about doing it to me. And that really woke me up. Although the threats on my life came a few times before I actually ended it, I feel like every single time that I left, it got worse and worse and worse. And I think that's because every single time, the more that I left, he knew, like, she gonna leave me for good. And that really scared me, because I didn't know, I wasn't sure, like, even on the 8th time I decided to leave, that I wasn't gonna make it out, you know. That's the main thing that really caused me to end the cycle. The next thing was my kids. My kids really made me want to do better, because I look at my babies And they were there for a lot of that abuse. They seen a lot. I wouldn't want either one of my kids to either be the abuser or be the person that's being abused, because it's very, very common for a kid to grow up in that household, that type of situation, to either become that or become a victim of that. And I really did not want my kids to go through what I went through. Also, I told y'all I got a strong soul, okay? My soul is so strong. I started to realize that I needed to find love on my own. I was always looking for love in the wrong places. And really and truly, I feel like love starts with yourself. You gotta love yourself. Even though I didn't want to face being alone, because I was so used to being up under him like that, deep down in my soul, I knew that I needed to be alone in order to dive deep and get to the root and the cause first and foremost. And then also achieving the self-love that I so desperately needed all my life. So, how I'm feeling now after all of that? Because it's been, how many years has it been since I've left that relationship? It's been either 6 or 7 years. Y'all, I'm not good with the math, okay? Since I physically left that domestically violent relationship. Although I left physically, which was great, kudos to me, good job, Dara. For years after that, up until, to be honest with y'all, up until last year, really the beginning of this year, but I want to say last year is when I started to really wake up. Up until last year was when I really was able to cut those emotional ties from that relationship. And it's so crazy to say that, because physically I've been away for 6 or 7 years, but mentally, because we have children together, it took me a little longer to completely cut that out of my life. If y'all haven't watched my quit my job video, y'all need to go check that out, because it's kind of like, even though I made the video before I made this one, it's still like a continuation of this video. This is the story of me from the beginning of that relationship to the end physically, but that video was about when I really, really, really freed myself, which was just last year. So y'all go check that video out too, because y'all, I cut a lot of people off in 2022. I ain't even gonna hold you. I cut off a lot of things that were no longer serving me. That's basically what that video was about. My job included, okay? And I must say, y'all, I feel so free. If you would have told me back then when I was in the sunken place that this is where I would be, I would not have believed you. Not at all. But I'm so free, y'all. And I just really wanted to tell my story because somebody need to hear this. I said it on the last video, but somebody need to hear this for real, because people are dying due to domestic violence at a accelerated rate. I want to be the example to show that you can get out of this and you can do this. And there's help out there. I'm going to also put the domestic violence hotline down in this video, and they are 24/7. You can talk to them at any time. But I'm also going to put my Instagram down below, as well as, well, put it down below in the description box. And I'm also going to put it on the screen somewhere also. If you are going through this, or if you have been through this and you want to vibe with me, feel free to DM me. We can DM each other back and forth, you know. If you just need some kind words, some encouraging words, I got you. Because I know how it is, and I know how it feels to feel alone, especially when friends and family have given up on you, or you have no one there to support you. I know exactly how you feel, especially for people who has been through this also and has survived this, because you a survivor. Comment down below and encourage people, encourage those who are still in this, in the thick of this. Comment down below so you know we can give them some encouragement too, so I ain't the only one. Because when it's a tribe of us that can prove that you can get through this and you can get out of this, it's even better, okay? I said this before in my last video, and I'm gonna say it again because this is to somebody. My soul is telling me to speak this. You need to know that you matter. I love you. Stay strong. You got this. A lot of us don't hear that enough. We don't hear that often, but we always need somebody to lean on. We all need somebody to lean on. Facts, okay? And I'm here. If you ain't got nobody, you got me, okay? Now I'm gonna try to respond as much as possible on Instagram. Please don't expect me to respond immediately, but I'm gonna respond as soon as I can. Also, if you haven't already, go ahead and like this video so that it reaches more people, so more people can see this and so that it gets to the right eyes. Subscribe if you haven't already so you can join me on my journey to happiness, because we're gonna achieve happiness, baby. Well, we already achieving it. It's already here, but we just gonna go after it some more. That's what we do, okay? And with that being said, y'all, I'm out. Deuces. See you guys on the next one. Bye, y'all.